minutes. So if we can start, tonight's meeting of the Finance and General Purposes Committee. I'm starting off the meeting in terms of chair because Colin, Councillor Riles, is absent this evening. I'm hoping it doesn't last very long, my chairing, because the agenda item 1 is elect a chair. So if it all goes to plan, I'll be able to pass it across. So is there anybody who's wanting to stand as chair?
I wanted to propose Councillor Green.
I'll second that.
All in favour?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I've joined the council to serve, and if councillors feel the best way I can serve this committee is to chair it, I gladly do so. So the next item 2 on the agenda is apologies for absence received.
Thank you, Chair. So we have apologies from Councillor Black with a travel commitment, Councillor Daniel Carter, a personal commitment, Councillor Paul Carter, a work commitment, and Councillor Colin Wiles, a travel commitment.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Chair, just to be clear as well, Councillor Tommins is substituting for Councillor Black.
Right, thank you. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is to receive and approve the minutes of the Finance and General Purposes Committee.
Declarations of interest.
Sorry, declarations of interest. I'm jumping ahead of myself. Thank you. Do we have any declarations of interest from members in respect of the business to be transacted this evening? No. Lovely. So we'll move on to the previous minutes, to receive and approve the minutes of the Finance and General Purposes Committee held on the 16th of April, and to consider any matters arising from those minutes not covered elsewhere in this agenda. Has anybody got any comments on matters that they'd like to raise?
I'd like to propose we accept those minutes.
Okay. There is just one action, I think, that was stated in the meeting. One action note, and that was in respect of a report to be provided for the next committee meeting, detailing the net profit margin of the Thursday and Saturday markets. So that action is outstanding.
It is, yeah.
So we just need to make sure we don't lose sight of those.
Yeah.
Okay, so you proposed, Dermot.
Yes.
Seconded by Councillor Pennington. Everybody unanimous agreement. Okay, thank you. So the next item is public participation. Do we have anybody who wants to avail of this opportunity?
No request, Chair.
Okay. So we'll move on to item 6, the payment schedules and finances. I hope you've all had a chance to to study these, and if you've had any queries, the procedure, the protocol is really to raise them with the RFO. So maybe what we should do is take 5A, 5B, 5C and 5D, which really relate to the payment schedules for the end of April, the payment schedules for mid-May, the payment schedules to the end of May, and the payment schedules that miss the April payment run as one. Is everybody happy, or does anybody have any queries with those?
I don't have a query. I have a congratulation to the mayor for going by train to Hastings. I think it's about time we started using public transport.
Yes.
And it's a much more efficient way of transport.
Wherever I get the opportunity, I will do that.
Well, thank you for raising that. It will be duly noted. So are we happy with all of those schedules then? Do we have somebody who will propose them?
Happy to propose.
Happy to accept. So is everybody happy that we will accept those payment schedules?
Yep.
Thank you. The next set of schedules to be approved, maybe we should take them in block, is the Sandwich Town Council reconciled bank statement for April, to the cash book statement for the end of April, The budget variance report is to the end of April. Can we have any comments on any of those from anybody? No, I would just make one comment. I was very pleased to see that Dover District Council on the 7th of April paid the precept in full, which is a wonderful feat because I don't know if many of us have paid all of our council taxes by the 7th of April. I congratulate Dover on paying us so promptly. So can I have somebody to propose acceptance of those schedules?
I propose.
Councillor Anderson, Councillor Pennington again. Everybody in favour?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And then 5H is for this committee to confirm the nomination of 2 signatories to authorise the end of May payment schedules on bank line. Do we have any signatories here?
Got me.
Yes,
So I'm happy to be one of the signatories.
thank you.
But not two.
Right.
So, if you want me to, then I think I ought to approach Councillor Wiles as the second signatory.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Everybody in favour of that?
Yep.
Yep.
Please show. That's a unanimous again.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So just before we move off the financials, just recognising the fact that our responsible finance officer left today. It was her last day, so could we just record thanks again for her in terms of the sterling work over the period that we've been at council. And I suppose there's a question that follows on from that. The level of confidence regards the interim arrangements. Are we in a sufficiently robust position, do you think?
I think so, but obviously the test is now, I mean, there has been, an adequate handover, so it's really now for that person to feel comfortable in the role without anyone else there. Yeah. But I'm certainly there as well, so they're not on their own. Yeah.
Is there anything that this committee could actually do to help?
What I would say is, if you could please bear with the agency person, because obviously it is going to take them probably a couple of months to fully appreciate all the complexities. So if people do have any inquiries, they could just bear that in mind, and maybe, if it's a committee agenda item, if you could give it as soon as possible, maybe not the morning of the meeting isn't ideal, but as soon as you get the papers, if you notice anything, and give that person a bit of breathing space is what I would say.
What is that person's name?
John. Yeah. Well, I don't share his surname here, but yeah, but he's an agency, and he's been here now for 3.5 weeks. So there has been a handover.
Is there some indication of how long? Is there a limit to the time that you can be with us, or?
There isn't a limit, but I've set the expectation 3 to 4 months, because clearly once the Human Resources Committee have met, the process needs to be agreed for recruitment needs to be undertaken, and then obviously once the interviews have taken place, it will depend on how much notice the person that's appointed has to give their current employer. So I think 3 to 4 months is realistic.
And will you be able to clerk this committee?
So I haven't suggested that as an agency personnel, he would be clerking meetings. I think he's got enough to do with everything else.
Okay, well, thank you for the comments there, and again, our thanks to Karen, and our good wishes to John, and our offer to support him, with things is kind of standing. There are a number of items in the agenda that do relate to them, but we should kind of hold off the ones that aren't absolutely ready.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay, shall we move on to item number 7 on the agenda, which is the priorities, terms of reference status and the action log for this committee. Town Clerk, you were going to share an update, please, for us to note.
Yes, thank you. So following the last meeting, there was some feedback. So I've now updated with the March actions that were not on the log last month, and obviously the last month's action as well, and that completed off in green the ones that it was agreed that we have completed, and yes, you've still got the priorities on the bottom, and obviously as we've just talked about, I know there's a lot in progress there, but if we could, you know, bear in mind that the agency person's just new here, and obviously I'm working with the property manager on some of these as well. So yeah, that was it. Thank you.
Could I just ask, do you think now with the new kind of civic year, and with the new business plan and so forth, it's an opportunity to kind of to reset this status
Yes.
log
Yes.
type of thing?
Yes, that's it.
You know, I'm kind of conscious when I look at it that some of these items which maybe are low priority are dating back to 2023, and I'm conscious that at the bottom of it we do have some of the they're marked as priority, but they're really a number of the duties and responsibilities of this committee that are kind of included in the terms of reference. So I think we should kind of show those a bit clearer. I'm conscious that some of these tasks are delegated to a working group which isn't working at the moment, and whether we need to re-establish that working group, I think is a matter for, is it in the first instance for this committee to decide, or is it for the council to decide?
So I've got an agenda item on full council on Monday to refresh for the terms of reference. Hopefully people will approve them, or they might want to look at them again, because obviously it's been a number of months since the Finance and Assets Working Group met, and also the membership. So if we can get that all agreed on Monday at full council, then we can set the date for the Finance and Assets Working Group to meet.
Okay, thank you. So just as on a personal note, I'm very happy to work with you, Town Clerk, to help reset this.
Thank you.
Because I think some of the completed items, you know, we can drop to the end, so we remind ourselves if they're good, or we take them off altogether. But we need to have a manageable document, so that people are focused on. So is everybody happy to note this? Can we have a proposer and a seconder then, please?
Second. Councillor Anderson.
Okay, so yeah, I think we're all voting.
All good with that?
All good with that. So that brings us to the final agenda item, which is, it's gone off my screen now, the date and time of the next meeting.
Devolution.
Oh, sorry, devolution.
Yeah.
I told you the agenda had gone off my screen. Okay, so Town Clerk, can you update us on this, because
Yes.
I'm just struggling with my IT.
Thank you, Chair. So there has been obviously a few conversations now starting about devolution and local government reorganisation. So there was an invitation from Dover District Council, the leader and the Chief Executive, for 2 representatives to attend from each local and parish council, town and parishes. So I went along with Councillor Black last week, and that was the 22nd of May at 6 o'clock in the council chamber at Dover District Council. So a number of local councils were there, so it was a good representation of, I think there's 35 across the Dover district. And we were invited to listen to the Chief Executive and the leader of Dover District Council talking about the Dover District Council position as they know it. So Nadine has started, he's the Chief Executive, with an overview and a background, talking about the December, the white paper, which everyone's, I'm sure, very familiar with by now. And then he said January to February, there were invitations and engagement with the local authorities, which they had to undertake some work there. And then we all know that Kent was not successful for the devolution priority programme. But that doesn't mean that things have come to a halt, because they are now working across the so there's 12 districts, Kent County Council, Medway Council, and the 12 districts and boroughs as well. So they have now had interim proposals that have been submitted in March, with full proposals needed by the 28th of November. So that's the deadline they're working towards, 28th of November. Councils across Kent and Medway are gathering feedback from the public on local government reorganisation to form part of their submission of the business plan in the autumn. Kent County Council has certainly got information on their website, and I've got the links which I can share with everybody. So the Kent interim plan for the local government reorganisation went on the 21st of March, and there has been some feedback, but what Nadine was saying is at the moment they don't understand where the position is of Kent County Council, because as we know there's been a change of administration. It's not been clearly made yet to the others in this, you know, big organisation trying to work towards unitary, what the position is for Kent County Council. So that is an unknown at the moment, and they're waiting to hear. He then went on to add, yes, so there will be a strategic partner, is what the central government has said. Every group of councils that are working together will need a strategic partner that will be engaged and paid for by central government initially. So there's an expectation, I think, further down the line that some of these groups of councils may have to pay for some of this themselves. The tenders are out at the moment for the strategic partner, and the appointment's expected in the next month or so. And these are the big, like Deloitte and people like that, you know, that are seriously used to dealing with, you know, looking at big business plans.
Talking about
the strategic partners.
sort of big consultancy.
Yes, they're the sort of organisation that will be employed to work with, you know, these big groups of authorities that are trying to work through, because as Nadine said, you've got all these district councils, borough councils, all got their own contracts. So you're talking about some of them maybe, I mean, I remember that Dover District used to be locked in for 10 years for their grounds maintenance contract, for instance. So if you've got councils all with different terms of contracts and things, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work that we're going to have to work through.
So I'm just wanting to get clear. So the strategic authority
Strategic partner.
will be a private consultancy.
Yes. That is
Okay.
paid and engaged and paid for by central government initially. And that's what they wanted to make sure.
Sorry, are they engaged to manage, oversee, assimilate, and then deliver an outcome around contract? Is it focused on contracts? Is that
Not,
what we're
no.
They're really just to support
Yes.
the collection of councils
Exactly,
that are needing to merge.
Exactly, because they have got to come up with one proposal by the 28th of November, and they've realised, central government, that all the authorities that are all trying to work don't have the resource, or so they needed to actually give them, someone to use to produce all this work, because it is huge piece of work.
Significant cost if we're talking about companies
Yes.
like Deloitte. It's
Yes.
significant.
Yes. That's why they made it clear that central government would be paying initially.
Do we get to see in terms of reference for the strategic partner?
So that was asked of Nadine, and he said he certainly hopes he can share more information, but he hasn't got anything at the moment. But yeah, so hopefully we'll be able to ask for that soon. So obviously there's been a lot of talk about metro mayors with unitary authorities, and I didn't know if people were familiar. A metro mayor is directly elected leader of an area. Once in place, metro mayors have executive powers and funding available to make strategic decisions over a range of issues, including skills, business support and transport, and in some cases crime and health. They also chair the combined authority, which is made of the area's constituent councils. So the Mayor of London is not a metro mayor and has a different legal basis and powers. Yes, that was just because I know it's a term that they use quite a lot in that meeting, and some people were saying, I don't know what metro means. And
So
obviously,
is there likely to be a metro mayor in Kent?
that's what the the indication is, but we
For
won't
the whole
know.
of Kent or for one city in Kent?
So basically, we don't know yet how it's going to be carved up, the unitaries. We don't know whether, it suspects that 3 or 4 unitaries will be formed, but until the proposal gets all the way to the end of November, we're not going to know. And the district council doesn't know either. And it all hinges around Kent County Council now. Obviously, they're only one of the 14, but clearly, you know, their input will be critical as they manage a lot of services and they've got a budget issue, because that's the other thing as well, the debt has to be shared, and yeah, so it's huge, it's a lot of work. Nadine was very clear that locally council engagement will continue, and Dover District Council will be regularly updating, and he's happy to have conversations with individual local councils. He's not interested in sitting down with a group of local councils, because I think someone suggested that. They said, oh, you know, could it be that all the little parishes got together and had a meeting with him talking about services that they might want to take on? But he said no, he's happy to have conversations with individual councils. And he said, in his own words, he's not going to condone asset stripping, that was his words, because it would be irresponsible of the district council to leave any unitary authority without any assets. So I think in the room people were had the feeling that, you know, they were a bit frustrated because some people were keen to pursue, you know, taking on extra assets or services, but clearly if anybody is minded to do that, there will need to be resources and budgets put to things like that. So yeah, so it's an interesting conversation, but that's all they could share at the moment.
Yes, Councillor Pennington.
Thank you. Two things strike me in that. One is that if we know KCC is going to disappear, why is it considered that their role is so important? Surely it's for the people further down the pyramid to try and shape the proposal, because we're the people who are going to have to live with it. Secondly, I am a bit concerned about this proposal only to deal with individual town and parish councils. We do have area committees where it would be perfectly possible to discuss some of the proposals and come up with ideas, and I should have thought that there might have been some mention of the role of those committees. I know in this council we rarely hear back from the area committees, but they can be an important source of coordination and information sharing. Thanks.
So, I think as a parish council, our focus we're going to be taken along on this ride, I think, and I don't think we're necessarily going to be anything other than right at the back of the bus, I think, in terms of how things are unfolding. So Dover have got very significant vested interests, as have KCC, and I think discussions are going to be between them and others like Folkestone, Hythe, District, etc. So I think we will be a very quiet partner in this. However, the thing that we should be focused on is the assets, if only to prove that the assets that exist with DDC are assets that we wouldn't want to take on. Because I've had a look at New Romney, who are that session that you're registering for, and I've registered for it already. They're going to talk about the assets and how they've approached it. I've gone onto their website, the council website, this morning, and I'd recommend it to anybody just to have a look. They've done a report on their assets that DDC own, and they've gone through a process, and I think a first step would be for us as a council to write to Dover District Council and say, could we have a list of the assets that are currently within Dover District Council so as we can look at them and consider. That's a reasonable request. It's not saying that we want to take them on board, we just want to look at them. The couple of things I would flag up: firstly, there is no money that comes with it. So if you take an asset, you then have to de facto almost certainly increase your preset.
Yeah.
And then the second thing is, so it's 3 things now. The second thing is taking the assets on, looking at New Romney as a model, it leaves a hole. So basically they've done their costings, And I think they've actually been very light touch, because I can see costings that aren't included, but they found a shortfall of £50,000 in their budget to accommodate the assets they think they want to take on board. So the bottom line is no money would come, but actually the consequence of any assets we might look at, things like cemeteries, things like play parks, etc., cost money to maintain, insure and run, and we won't have money for it, so we will be having to look at the precept going up. So that's my personal view on that. And then the final point is a conversation, it's not demand. So why would Dover District Council necessarily want to give us any of their assets? The argument would have to be compelling. Their revenue stream is the car park. Why would they give that up?
The Dover District Council is going to disappear.
It is, but that doesn't mean to say they'll give it away. My point, back to my start point, if their conversation is with Kent County Council and other district councils, the leverage that we would have as a parish council, I think, would be very small.
I mean, it's just supposing we took over the car parks. I mean, it's a deeply controversial issue.
It is.
And Sandwich Town Council has taken a view about car parking in this town. And so there would be non-monetary advantages to owning the car parks. And I think we would have to consider that. Similarly, Dover District Council owns this building.
It does. Yep.
So again, there would be other considerations that we need to take into account. So I think we should have a very broad view of costs and benefits of taking over particular assets.
Yeah, well, I support Councillor Anderson's comments, but I also think in addition to the assets issue, we need to look at what powers might be transferred as well. And the overall distribution of powers, I mean, we are going to work in a new framework. We all know that at the moment it's a confusing and muddled distribution of powers between KCC and DDC, and I hope that in the course of this exercise there will be a more logical approach to who does what. I mean, for instance, the example I often quote is who decides on double yellow lines.
Quite.
I mean, it has to go to Maidstone, which is ridiculous. You should be able to decide how the traffic is managed in Sandwich with professional advice. But I mean, I hope that there will be a more sensible distribution of powers as a result of all this.
Just to come back to Councillor Suker on your comment about the budget and the precept having to go up. As far as I'm concerned, that shouldn't impact the overall council tax that's being paid, because surely Dover are getting revenue to maintain buildings and so forth as part of their council tax. So if it comes into Sandwich's care and custody, then surely the revenue that Dover or whatever council or Kent would have received from the overall council tax should come with it.
But it's not just the council tax, it's the block grant from central government as well.
Oh, yeah.
How that is allocated, that's very important.
Well, you know, there is funding. Just because the assets is transferred, the funding stream for it, the funding projection for it still exists. So I'd be on the page of challenging them. But no budget is coming with it.
We should encounter and challenge that, of course. But looking at the new wrong, and this is my reference point, because they've done some work already on this, there's no reference to any money coming. The only way they have a close to viable model, but as I said, there's a £50,000 shortfall, is by assuming that they will take over the car parks. So So if we went into negotiation on things like cemeteries, toilets particularly, all of those will be costs. There's no income, and that includes insurance, not just the actual cleaning. For example, we're already doing the cleaning, but then there's the maintenance and all that. Their model is very much predicated on the car parks coming across, and it still doesn't balance the books. So I think we should start an exercise. The concern I would have is, even though it's the end of November for the deadline, I can't believe that Dover District Council will be engaging with us on the 12th of November, the 15th of November. They will want to shut that down much earlier because they the end point is much closer. But if we don't strike early, once we get to the 28th of November, I suspect all movements of assets will be embargoed, because once you go into change, normally what you do is you lock down everything. What you won't do is have continuing movements of anything if 28th of November is the deadline, which it is at the moment.
There's a lot of work to do
There
by
is.
the strategic partner and all those things.
Yeah.
Those-
So I suppose from a practical sense, how are we going, because we're sitting down here today, we'll come back in a month's time, that's a month gone. How do we practically consider how we might, we can send a letter and ask.
We can send the letter
Yeah.
to get the list of assets, and I think, given that it's only kind of 5 months away or whatever, the end of November, I think we should be asking for a monthly meeting with Dover to be able to understand what progress they're making, or Kent, to understand what progress is being made in all of this, so that we can take timely action.
So we might want to change that slightly, because I'm not sure that 35 councils are saying what monthly meetings is going to get well received. I think we need to hear from them. How are they going to engage with us, and in what timescales? We also need to know what timescales, any exercise around the assets, what's their framework in terms of timescale, because we need to know what our actual windows of opportunity.
Yeah, but we also need to be into influence and not just be told by them, this is what you're having and this is what you're being given. If they've got this huge task on, they're going to, Deloitte and the likes will flood it with people.
Oh, they will.
Sorry?
Yes, they will.
So, we need to get in front of those and getting on the paperwork there. So I'm strongly in favour of taking a proactive approach, as opposed to just waiting to see what we're doing.
Well,
Yeah,
I was going to say that we've got a meeting with the leader of Dover District Council, Kevin Mills.
Yeah.
So we can speak there about
pick that up.
That's a routine meeting, is it? It's not
No.
specific for devolution, is it?
It's a broad meeting,
Yes.
which devolution will feature
Yes.
in it.
Right.
yes.
Okay, and is that a regular thing that
No,
happens?
this is my introduction. I've said
All right.
reach out, and which Town Park has done, and has accepted a meeting in the short term, so we're going to do that.
That's a good forum to
Yeah.
kick the ball off.
I would be concerned about simply waiting for them to come. We heard from Councillor Carter that he, on various issues, he's often written and not had a reply, and I feel we need to really push and knock on the door on this issue. Otherwise, we will know nothing and say nothing.
So we are going to do that, aren't we? We're going
Yes.
to write to them,
Yes.
ask for the detail of the assets that are in scope.
Yes.
We're also going to ask for their time frames in terms of their working to, in terms of discussing this with us. We should also be saying that we want to have regular engagements with them in terms of progressing our expectations around this.
And ourselves, we need to be clear then as to what our negotiation targets are and so forth.
Yeah.
And so we probably need a shadow task team, or is it going to fall to this committee, or is it going to be dealt with at council level?
All good questions.
I think I'm just going to. It's an obvious point, but I mean, EDC own the quay. It's not just a car park, it's
Mm.
also a very important part of the vision of the sandwich.
Yeah.
So, you know, one could imagine that if we, the town council, owned the quay, then there would be opportunities for all sorts of things such as that, which we have talked about for many years. So it could be, this could be an amazing opportunity. And that, I think, is why this white paper calls itself devolution, but when I read it I thought it's all about centralisation. But I think we do have to be proactive and try and get as much headroom out of it as we can.
Okay, so are we clear then? You summarised the kind of the next steps there before, and I think we're kind of all in agreement.
Yep.
Okay, happy? Anything else on this subject? Okay, so we do move on to the last agenda item, which is the date and time of the next meeting, which is the 18th of June, here at 6:30 p.m. I would ask as chairman if anybody's got any, or chair, if anybody's got any items they want raising on the agenda, they do so within at least 10 days, if not 2 weeks beforehand, so the clerk has got plenty of time to plan the agenda and we can get all of the reports